Greetings, this is the Insomniac GM, and today I want to discuss with you guys a conversation I had with my one friend like about, oh my gosh, almost like 6 months ago, thinking about it. But him and I were watching a horror TV show, and he was asking me why we see so many horror movies and shows set out in the country. And I explained to him why. And, recently I've been thinking about it, and I figured this might be a little good segment to talk about for those who run horror games such as Call of Cthulhu and that. But here's my little tips for running horror games. So, for the big thing is the unknown. Your players are not scared of it if they do not know. They're not going to be afraid of whatever you're throwing at them if they know what it is and how to deal with it. If you look at, like, for instance, Dungeons and Dragons, a lot of times players are not afraid of trolls because they know they're weak against fire and there's not as much of a panic. But if they're not prepared for a troll and they weren't aware that's what they were going up against, that's when they start getting scared. I recently ran a game where my players went up against a werewolf, and I wasn't very informative straight out of what they were up against, and by the time they were up against a werewolf, there was the fear of how unprepared they were. They ended up succeeding, but there was that dread. Now, like I was telling my friend before, the reason for a lot of horror stories being set in the country is isolation. Now, this is another reason why Alien is so popular. You're in the middle of nowhere in space. You could do one in the ocean, but it doesn't have to be isolation in the sense of them being the only, like, being in a sparsely populated area. It could be isolation in the sense of their minds have awakened and they can see creatures nobody else can see. And so now they feel isolated because they are the only ones able to see these creatures and nobody can relate with them. And so you have isolation. Now, atmosphere. Atmosphere is a great tool for running horror games. Usually when I do it, I have a bunch of 5 and below lights that I hook up and I turn them on, they glow bright red, and I light up the table just enough where the players can see their character sheets and read them and read their dice rolls, but just enough for that. Other than that, I turn off the light, so we're playing in the dark with very little light, and that light is red. I play some creepy music. I try to keep the music I play not related to a movie or a video game or anything like that, and if I do, I make sure it's something my players don't know. Because if you start playing, say, I don't know, the Jaws theme, they're not going to be thinking, oh my gosh, I'm on edge. They're going to be thinking, hey, this is Jaws. I remember watching that movie. So you want to create this atmosphere. Now, part of the atmosphere is your descriptions of the senses. So, say they go in an underground, like, cave, and you explain they smell rotten flesh. and the walls and the floor are sticky, and as they walk through this cave, their feet, it feels like them walking in like a theater with like the sticky pop on the ground, and like they get a taste in their mouth of a sweetness, a alien-like sweetness that is so thrown off for you with the aroma of rotting flesh. It plays part in the atmosphere, and it does wonders. Now, another thing is leaving areas open for the players. So, have you ever gone online and after people see a movie, there's areas that weren't filled, questions people have, and now all these people start making theories on what's going on? That is great to do. It's good for you to understand why whatever horror is going on is happening for the reason that it is. But you don't need to give that answer to your players. You can leave that up for them to gather information. Going back to my previous, what if they go through and they find that all the people in town who've been going missing, they've been killed, and their bodies have been taken to this cave, gathered up in a pile, and covered in this sticky slime. And you look above the bodies, there's an opening in this cave where you can see the stars. And they defeat the monsters, but they never know why those bodies weren't touched. What was the reason for that ooze? Now they start speculating on the reasons of why. What were the creatures up to? What would have happened if they failed? Did they fully defeat the monsters? Did they succeed in their goal of whatever they were doing with these bodies? There's that. Now, a great example. I wish I could find this clip on YouTube to show you guys, but there's a Disney movie that came out in the 90s. There's one that just came out, ignore that one, but it's called Under Wraps. And in the beginning of the movie, they go to the theaters and they watch as this dad goes up to the sink and he drops a knife accidentally in the garbage disposal, and it's going off and the knife is pointing right up and it's spinning. And the dad goes to turn off the garbage disposal, but you see from the point of the monster, and it breaks through the window and grabs the dad's head and it cuts away. And you hear screaming. Now, let's just say Disney filled in that spot, showing you what happened. It would not have been as scary as what you filled in your head. And that's one thing to take into consideration with your players. Is if you explain too much detail of what's happening, it's going to become less scary. Explain just enough for your players to start having the gears turning, and they fill in that gap. And now they go, oh my god. And those are my tips for trying to run horror games. There may be some others that I'm not thinking about, and I may talk about them later if I remember them, but those are some of the big ones I wanted to cover for you guys. So, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video.